Welcome to the Provoke and Inspire podcast. My name is Ben Pierce. So excited that you can be joining us today. We really at this point only have Chad as part of the usual complement of regulars. Everyone else, I don't know. Luke's in Poland. He panicked. No. We only have, but let me tell you, we have these. I would say Chad and I are probably the best of the four of us on the podcast. So. For those watching and not listening, we have an incredible guest for you today. I'm super pumped. We have Sonny Sandoval. He's, there's no introduction required. He's the American singer, rapper, and songwriter, co-founder of P.O.D. And then also more recently, he's part of the evangelistic movement, the Whosoevers. And we get to talk to Brian Head and Ryan a lot, Ryan Reese. It's so great to also be able to talk to you, Sonny. Thank you so much for being on the Provoke Inspire podcast.
Oh, thank you guys, man. I love being here.
Yeah, well, thank you for getting up. I know we changed the time on you a little bit, which I think you're West Coast, so that was probably a little appreciated.
Yeah.
You wake up too early. So, Sonny, I think what would be great is just, I know most people watching, listening will have heard of P.O.D, will recognize you, but could you share a little bit about just your story? You have a very, very interesting story, and I think our listeners would love to hear more about it.
For sure. I try to keep it as short as possible. I grew up in a neighborhood, where it's easy to get into trouble. Grew up in a young immigrant family. So they were young, drugs, all that whole thing, just trying to figure out life, having kids. And, God started to pick off people in my family one by one. He started to save them, becoming real, not this religious experience, just this heart-to-heart intimate relationship. And then
was your family, did you come from a Christian family?
No. Well, my grandmother and my mother, they were from Italy, so they have that classic Catholic routine background, so I never had a problem with God. It was just part of I think it was part of our culture. It was a religious thing. I didn't know God personally. I went to church on Easter and Christmas Eve, you know what I mean? Yeah. Get it in there, Yeah. And but when my mom came to the Lord, I just watched a change in my family, and so it was real. And like I said, I never had a problem with God. I find it. I mean, it's not crazy to me, but it's crazy to me when people just have it in for God and they don't even know why. But my mom, she was diagnosed with leukemia, cancer, when I was 18. So I kind of watched her go through that. And even though she was just deteriorating, her love for God was unreal. Her faith was, it was contagious. And I watched her go through that. And long story short, I kind of made a deal with God. I came to him and I just said, if you take my mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I just want my mom's Jesus. I don't want the world's Jesus. I don't want this, this history of the institution of church and hypocrisy that I felt was, in my heart and mind at the time. And that wasn't real to me, but the Jesus in my mom's life was undeniable. So I prayed that, I told God, I know I'm a sinner. I don't need anybody to tell me that. He wasn't even telling me that, it was just, I already knew it. And, but I knew God can clean me up and wash me up, and he did that. And so I asked God into my life. And then that same day I went back into the hospital and I whispered to my mom, go and be with Jesus. And then she would take her last breath. And then I was just trying to figure out my walk with God, my journey at that time. I started to try to give up things in my life that I knew were unhealthy for me and try to walk this life. And before I knew it, I had asked God, use my life, whatever that means. I just want, I want my friends to know I've changed. I'm different. I want my community, my neighborhood to know that this Jesus is real in my life. And Marcos and Wov, the guitar player and drummer in my band, they were doing some other thrash stuff. And we used to go to local shows and house parties and stuff and get down with them. And they were believers. And then they had asked me if I wanted to be in, when I wasn't P.O.D at the time, it was be in their band. And I think it was just a way for them to keep me out of trouble. And then long story short, through so many other details, it was just confirmed that it was meant to be. And we just started playing around town everywhere we can go. And we learned to have this hardcore kind of Christian gang mentality to just more love and grace. And, and then as we've met before, we learned that there was a scene, in the Christian underground world. I didn't know that Christian music existed, or, there was a scene, and until you just started playing, and then you started meeting other guys, and you're like, oh, cool, we're all like-minded, and we're out there in the world, but our heart was always it was confirmed to always to go into the world. It wasn't to stay locked in within the church walls or boundaries. It was, we just knew that that's what it was, and we toured a bunch underground, and we toured, and then about 7 to 8 years after starting.
Yeah, I remember. I remember seeing you. Sorry to interrupt you, but
please.
I remember seeing you guys in Birmingham, Alabama, when I lived there, and I started up my own little music venue and record label, and you guys would come through a venue called the Crush Warehouse.
The Crush. I remember the Crush.
Just Derek's place, just this big empty space.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing people, like, just kids getting so excited for P.O.D. And I was like, P.O.D.? What's that? Is that like a new drug, Yeah. And but I remember thinking, man, these guys are amazing and so passionate. And it was cool to watch from like a really early level just the trajectory, it was actually shocking, because back then there wasn't a whole lot of the fade over, or the crossover into from the Christian. Once you're in the Christian world, you're screwed. You're always in the Christian world.
Kind of, yeah.
It's hard, man. To break out of that is a challenge. So anyway, I have very fond memories of those early days.
Chad, that's funny you say that, because when you guys were at that point, I was in New Zealand in high school, and so I don't know if you played in New Zealand. I assume you played in New Zealand at some point.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I didn't see you there. The first time I saw you was at the Excel Center with Lincoln Park, so slightly different.
Wow. Yeah,
Nice.
Slightly different experience.
From dirty warehouse to big arena.
Right. Yeah, that could be the book. I don't know if you wanted to do the book, but that could be the book. So, wow. I had the totally different experience. I would love to hear about that desire, because I think that was intentional, right? Like your ability, your crossover was not just accidental. I think that's what, from an economic perspective, I think that's what all Christian artists want. But from a missional perspective, was that part of the plan? Were you always hoping to not get sort of put into that box of a Christian band? How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, for sure. Again, like I said, we never said we were a Christian band, or we didn't even know that title existed. I just listened to music. To me, music is music. But even in the hardcore scene, whatever it was that you believed in, or your stance, you were just about it. You weren't labeled this thing or that thing. You were just about it. When we were playing around San Diego, we were 19. We were playing bars and clubs. We couldn't even get into bars, and we'd have to sit outside. They'd bring us in to play, and they'd kick us right back out, and we were getting this buzz in San Diego, like, man, these guys are good. They're cool. It was obvious that we were believers, and we were playing with skinhead bands. We were playing with anybody. It was just an underground thing, but you were allowed to speak, what you were about. And then the first time we got asked to play in a church, it was for like this youth group rally. A bunch of youth groups had come into town. They were going down to Mexico, which is my backyard, to help with an orphanage over there. And our guitar player, he kind of grew up in this church. And, we played because they heard we were believers. We went into the first song, dude. The first song, some youth pastor from, I don't know what church, I don't know what city. He literally walked in on the first song, clamped the guitar, and just said, "Oh, no, we can't do this." So we were already told from that point. Our first Christian experience was we were not of God. Right. This is not God's music. Our tattoo, everything about us was not of God, and that was really confirmation. That was like, dude, we're getting known in our town, in our neighborhoods, and as this band, and yet the church doesn't want us, which was fine. It was no hard. It's all right. It was all good.
Yeah.
But that was just me learning here. I just got saved. It was kind of my experience with the church, with believers, or Christians, I should say. And And so that was it. We were always, our heart was to go to whoever would listen.
Yeah.
And even through the years. So when we went, like you're talking about the Crush, those were places that there were Christians and believers that were just stoked. They were stoked that we can get down that way, that those bands were getting down. They were coming through with no shame, just saying, dude, we love you guys. It's about Jesus. And, because for those Christians that grew up in the church or whatever, they were only allowed to listen to DC Talk or, whatever. So a band like P.O.D. comes in, or Unashamed, you know what I mean? Some of these new earlier Tooth and Nail bands.
Yeah.
They were like, this is us, this is Christians can be cool too,
Right.
So we got a lot of comments coming here. Apparently, Mark Skelton took you out to dinner at some point, but you were on an Atkins diet, so you were not willing to eat buns with your burger at the time. So I don't know
that was the trend back there. I'll never forget. Everybody was doing everybody in all the bands.
The question is, are you still on the Atkins diet?
Oh,
because that's commitment.
No. I go in and out of so many things. Right now, I'm a so-called vegan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
So here's my question,
good.
because the whole Christians in the secular scene and then the church you get criticized for the clothes or the tattoos or the music style or whatever. It's such a messy thing, and I feel like I think one of the biggest things is, how are you able to of course there's those superficial things that you just have to push beyond. It's like, look, Jesus was a friend of sinners. He spent so much time with sinners. He was accused of being one himself.
Yeah.
How though at the same time did you manage that balance of being in that world, and how did you manage that to be a witness? I mean, how were you able to be bold? Did you find that was a threat to your trajectory? How did you manage that tension of trying to be in the world, but then also at the same time not kind of going down the route that I feel like a lot of Christian artists went, which is they just stopped talking to continue to rise? How did you fight that balance?
Right. I think for us, once we, again, no love lost, once we realized that we weren't being supported by the church, we didn't really look for that support. It was always, we knew we 100% said, dude, we are about Jesus. And so we knew that we had to be, 50 times better than the band that we played with, because you're already going to say, oh, that's that lame Christian band, dude.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to just destroy those stereotypes from the beginning. And again, because we weren't looking for the support of the church, like a lot of those Christian bands back in the day, I don't know if they ever really said, we want to get outside of this box, because there was so much support there for them. It wasn't there for us, but it was like, oh yeah, dude, we can go play at church and they'll throw us some money, or they'll put us up to stay. They'll feed us, whatever. We can't pack out a bar. We can't get two people at a bar. So why go there?
Right.
Where our heart was like, I'd rather go to the two people at the bar than go to a packed out Christian church or venue, whatever that was. Mm. So that was always our mindset, and we knew that God was guiding and leading. So we just went that direction. And then at one point, I remember at the time, it was one of the biggest Christian labels at that time had come to us and said, dude, we want to sign you guys. And I remember telling the guys, or we had a conversation together where we just knew that that wasn't the direction. So a lot of people, even from the Tooth and Nail world and all them, were like, dude, you guys didn't sign with them. And it was like, why? That's the Christian world.
Right.
Why? So when we started to get looked at by labels from the world, it wasn't, we just knew that one day it was going to happen. And when it did, it was like, I don't think it was more exciting that, Atlantic Records was wanting to make a deal with us. It was just more exciting that, dude, we followed our hearts, we trusted God, and it happened. And that, to me, that was the most exciting thing,
Yeah.
How were you, did you manage to, once the platform kept growing and it becomes less about the two people at the bar, because that season didn't last for you. From my experience, that certainly didn't last forever.
I remember the two people at the bar.
Right? I do too.
How did you, with all the pressure that comes with that and all of the increased platform and probably people talking to you and saying, don't do this or don't do that, how did you manage to stay fruitful in the witnessing part of it? Did you find that you were able to still do that? Did you still see fruit as the band continued to grow?
For sure. I think at this point, by the time we got signed, I think we had already been a band for like eight years. And so there was already a lot of growing process, some of the stuff we had talked about. But
sure.
Like I said, in the beginning, when we used to play these bars with the two people in, we were just we had this gang mentality where we went in there and we said, like, no one's going to tell me about my Jesus. This is my Jesus. And we came off very militant, almost like we were ready to fight because of the bands we were playing. I think it was more the bands, you'd have a Nazi skinhead band that played after us or before us. And it was like, we were ready to fight, it's like no matter what. And I'll never forget getting a letter from this guy. He was a local artist, played coffee shops and a believer. And at the time, before email, he had to actually write a letter. He had to actually write a letter to us. And it was the most beautiful, just to the heart letter. And it said, man, I see what you guys are doing. And you're getting into places that, dude, I'll never get. Most believers will never get. And he was like, dude, I love the passion. I love the fire. I love the zeal. And he said, if I can encourage you guys to just let love, let love lead the way. It's just, he's like, you guys want to get invited back. He's like, you're being invited into places. And I get it that he's like, but you guys are going there kind of burning it down a little bit, and he was just almost like just a spiritual father. He just said, man, just love them to the Lord. So at that point, in my heart, I was good with, because then you wanted to see the fruits. Like you wanted to see, those two guys from the bar come straight up to the stage and fall on their face and give their life to the Lord and confess Jesus as Savior. And that wasn't the thing. I knew at that point, it was like, God, if you put us on a place and we're just throwing out, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of seeds, I'm content with that. Like, I'm good with that. So do it in a way that was just throwing out the seeds and let God's people water it, let God's people bring them in, or let God do it. So again, it was the more of that heart. Like, we weren't going to go in these places and then we just knew that we weren't going to burn it down anymore. We were just going to be excellent. They were going to know that we believed in Jesus and we loved them, and that, just again, with the heart and mentality that they would invite us back. We started, building relationships. And so when we went into the secular world and we got signed, that first record, you could see the transition, still a little bit kind of, oh yeah, no one's going to tell us we're not denying nothing, that you feel like you have to defend all the time. And then the second album came with, that album did very well. It went platinum. And then the second album, you have songs like Alive, Youth of the Nation, just more universal. We went in with the universal mentality that, dude, we want these songs. We do want them to play on radio. We do want people around the world to hear them, but the lyrics are undeniable. They're going to know that we're talking about God. We're talking about Jesus. It was already, we were open book about our faith. So it wasn't like, it was already known. It
wasn't like you were spinning some new thing.
No, we didn't have to keep telling the same story. It was like, okay, now what's next? What's the next album? How do you guys move forward? Go ahead.
Did it close down doors for you? Did the openness and the willingness to speak, did you feel like there was a sacrifice in terms of the career side of it, the opportunity side of it?
I think so. I mean, whatever. Ultimately God's in control, but I think so. I think it was just a learning process with us and how the church works and the music. But even when they would ask us, like, are you guys are Christians? I would ask them, what do you mean by that? Like, if you're just trying to tell your readers, hey, these guys are Christians, they're lame, they believe in God, don't listen to them, then I don't want to give into that. You know what I mean? So it was, it's just, it's what it is, but we knew that just moving forward, God was in control of everything that was going on.
So you mentioned spiritual fathers a minute ago, and I think one of the things that has always impressed me about you and about P.O.D. is, especially coming from a music industry business perspective, as an A&R guy that was finding and signing and helping develop bands, it was weird. Not only was it not normal, it was weird to hear that a band had a pastor. It was like, dude, where'd you get that guy? Like, how in the world do you have a pastor? And of course, now knowing Guido, I know that it's not weird at all. And I know that it's a really beautiful thing. But at what point did Guido come into your lives, and would you, if you were to do it all over again, and maybe giving your younger self advice now, or anyone listening who's still got crazy dreams of their own, what would you say specifically relating to kind of like the spiritual father place within a group or an artist? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, dude, it's definitely accountability is needed. I mean, because dude, by no means were we perfect. We made a lot of mistakes, and again, you look back and say to your younger self, Guido didn't step in the picture till actually you were saying, Ben, that was on that Linkin Park tour. That's the first time I met Guido. So
wow.
we had already been. Let me see. Actually, it was before then. I'm sorry. It was right before then. It was the last show that we played with Marcos before we had our little split.
Yeah.
So I want to say around 2002, maybe.
Okay.
But see, but the thing is, when we would go and play these shows before we were signed to Atlantic Records, there were so many, again, spiritual fathers out there that would come to us and they would say, dude, I get what you guys are doing, man. Like, it's like we're like these. I always say it like this with P.O.D. I always felt like I'm this assassin. I'm this assassin from stage, and you're just sniping people off one by one. It's not this big revival. What I'm saying? It's not this.
Yeah.
It's not this altar call at Ozfest. It's not that. It's just more individual. But the guys that got it, we had been hit with so much resistance from the church and people that it was like, oh wow, it was a bummer. It was like, damn, this sucks. Same thing with Head, all these guys. What? He went back to Korn? What? All these bands, there's all these questions and stuff. And it's like, dude, let God be God and do what he's doing, but there were those people that would come out and say, dude, I pray for you guys every day, man. I want to be here while you guys are playing this show and just pray for the crowd. And there was people that got it. And we tried to focus more on the 5 people that got it than the thousands that said, you guys are not, this is wrong. You know what I'm saying? So, dude, but again, going back to accountability, which still for me is even to this day is still, needed. But the more that we got into that secular world, and this is the crazy thing is I think we went into it with the heart of saying, okay, cool. We know what we believe. God got us here. We're on a mission, right? And this is not going to happen to us. We're going to learn from other people's mistakes. And then once you get there, there's just so much more things coming at you that it's like, from the most subtlest of things, it's not this big, enemy attack. It's just the most just worldly things, little things here and there that get to you. And then, and not only that, just all of a sudden we became rock stars,
Right.
And I hate even saying that because I definitely don't define myself that in any way. But when people treat you like rock stars and all these things, dude, you start to like enjoy the company, start to enjoy all the little yes men and all these things. And even though your heart's right and you're doing stuff, and before you know it, for me personally, that's when you just discover, dude, I'm so lukewarm in my walk with God. This is crazy,
How'd you go from recognizing lukewarmness into the like a return to zeal? Because that's something that's for anyone who's been listening to this podcast knows. In my story, I've been in a season of lukewarmness that's not. It's more like it was like more like sin induced than it was just like like one day I just my zeal for God kind of lessened. It's like I finally came to terms with the fact that I've been addicted to pornography for most of my life, and I've always kind of like been like, well, it's really not that bad. It just happens every now and again. It's like every man's battle. I basically never actually confronted the recess of my heart and the inner world that I was deliberately sustaining on a, even if it was an occasional, but still it's like porn was occasional, but lust and objectification and all the things that happen up here, it was like very, very frequent. So God's been doing a really cool work in my heart, and I'm so grateful. And my marriage is being restored. My family's being restored. It's crazy, but I'm still kind of like dealing with this question of how do I regain the fervor, the fire, the heat, because I've been there. I can't just make it happen. I want to, like, Sonny, give me the,
you want it. Want it.
I want to make it like, dude, do you have the special like anointing oil of like making it happen? Cause that's what I need.
I wish, bro. I mean, that's kind of what happened was around 2009, going into a whole nother season of music. and just watching all the things that were happening around me, that's when I was like, dude, I need to take some time off. And that's when the Whosoevers was birthed. And it was really just me. I knew God's grace and his faith, and I mean, his love for me. And I just didn't want to believe I was saved because I said this prayer so long ago. It's like that excitement was kind of, even though we're at the top of our game, that my spiritual excitement was just like I was going through the motions, and it was just more of a just slow compromise of things, like, hey, well, this is what you do in the business. You got to network, you got to be around these people, you got to play the game.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it's like, man, I just started seeing people that were mighty men of, to me, were mighty men of God or strong in the faith. They were getting picked off one by one. Mm-hmm. And so I came to a place where I was like, dude, I didn't even ask for this. I believe God, gave this to me. And dude, music doesn't define me. This band doesn't define me. And that's when I just wanted to just get my heart right with God, and that's when the Whosoevers was birthed. I was able to come home. I took some time off of music. But then here we are in this season. Yeah. I just got back from the Whosoevers the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited to
and I've been telling people, dude, I feel like I just found God for the first time. So see, I don't have the recipe. It's just this season of action of being thrown in there. And I think for me, because of quarantine and COVID and just going down the rabbit hole of what, man, is this the end of the world? What's going on, God? What do we do? My heart's still broken for all these young people and people in general that are lost without you. And so to be a part of that, it was really, for me, a stepping out of faith. And again, I've been a Christian for a long time, but something happened, that really, it just became exciting again. Not that I haven't seen God work, not that I haven't been a part, been able to witness and be a part of things and see God do. Every story we're talking about is miracles to me, but being out there with that heart to say, just really that desire to step out in faith, watch God move. And I went to be a part of this, but yet this whole time God was working in me saying, dude, I want to stretch you. I want to take you farther. Like, look what just happened. Like this, come on, after all these years, get with it, and so I'm excited, man.
Yeah. And I am too. I mean, I think for myself and my own story, that it's like, I didn't want the last 2-year season that I've lived through. I never would have picked it had it been mine to choose. I never would have gone through it had it been, my own personal thing. But now that I'm like coming out of it, I can I'm so much more capable of seeing God's hand in it and how much he's been speaking to those places that I didn't even know needed a touch from him. And I think that's one of the things that I hope God will do in the lives of anyone listening, especially those who are struggling with their own faith and their own, like what you just said, even COVID stuff. Like what do I do with all this? And then politics on top of it. Right now, there's just seems like there's it's such a crazy season. And I hope and pray that one of the things God does is just this rekindling where it's like, man, I can't make it happen. I don't want to force it, but I want to stay open, So
that was me, bro. But you know what? The thing is, I think your honesty and your vulnerability, that's what the world needs, man. They're so busy, or they're just so used to looking at a church that's perfect that they know that, dude, I'll never be there. I could never do that. God, I'm way too sinful. I'm way too ugly in my heart, my soul, that, dude, because of the image that we as the church have portrayed, like, oh, dude, we got it together. We're so holy. We're so righteous that, dude, we're pushing people away by the thousands and the thousands because they just don't get it that, dude, we are a broken people. But by the grace of God, we're restored people, and people should know that. You should be honest and say, dude, I'm going through the craziest season of my life. I've been a Christian for a long time, but dude, God is faithful. I know God is good. I know he's faithful. He's going to get me out of it. But so, it's just, people need to know that, dude, they have a chance, know?
Yeah. That's good.
One thing you said earlier that I think relates to this is that when you're an artist, you have this unique opportunity to speak to thousands of people, well, especially when you reach a certain level. And it's a challenge because you're able to do something on that level, right? But you're there, it's 2 hours maybe, and then you're gone, and you don't have continual access with those people. And I think something that you're speaking to, something that's reflected in your story, my story, Chad's story, is that this walk with Jesus is daily. It's dynamic, and we have to continue to work it out. I think it's kind of like if you're married, you don't just get married and you're done, right? Like, sweet. Like, that's just you're so dumb in the beginning. You have no idea how much work and how much you're going to have to continue to fight
so
to
much
stay
work,
real and intimate. It's like people think, like what I often say is people think getting married is like buying a house. No, getting married is like buying the land. Now you spend 40 years building the house. You've done nothing yet. You have no idea. So, but the point is, it's the same sort of thing. And the problem is artists get put in this position where they're responsible to tell the truth, but what they don't want is to give the impression that it's like, just say, yeah, I'm in, and now it's good, right? Because our lives reflect that, man, it's a long journey, and you need grace and patience. And like you said, I mean, you say the thing like, I'm discovering God for the first time. I think if you're not discovering God for the first time every few years, you're not
all the time.
Right?
I totally agree, man. And I think, we're talking about accountability, or just the church being like-minded, having, one heart, one mind, one soul. It's like, we need that. You were saying, like, dude, you play a show and like you plant these seeds, but then where do these people go to? We need to be on the same game plan. So when these people are like, dude, I'm feeling Jesus move, and I just wanted to go to church, everybody needs to be on that page. We've done stuff, even ministry stuff, where some of these old school churches, they knew that, dude, every color hair and tattoos and piercings, they're going to come and they're going to get saved. But then these old school churches are like, well, what church are they going to go to after they get saved? And it's like, they're going to go to your church, dude. What are you talking about?
Right.
And they admitted, like, to being scared or being nervous about this generation. And it's like, oh, then you don't trust in the power of God to heal and restore and to change. Like, you're just, I don't know what you believe in. Your church door should be welcoming, dude, every person, every color, every creed, from wherever walks of life, who is broken and needs a place, to go where someone can show them the love of God. And if you're not on the same page, then, we're just a hit and a miss.
Yeah. Do you think that part of the problem, just as we're talking here, I'm just thinking, do you think that what we've done is we've taken a Christian artist and we've isolated them, and they say, okay, you go out there, especially the ones like you that had this anointing and calling to go outside of the church, and then the church will, and again, this is not, we love the church. I am the church.
Of course.
We're imperfect, but it feels as if it's almost like, go do it. We're going to stand back here. And if you're not preaching enough, we're going to get you. If you're look too much like the world, we're going to get you. And it's kind of like, I almost feel like the problem is we need to be there together. You said something that's brilliant, right? The church, the band is one part of the body, right? The artist can uniquely express something in society, can point out lies and communicate the truth in a powerful way. But right there, the church should be the people that are good at talking to people one-on-one, the disciplers, the hospitality people.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that we're not
encouragers.
I think what's happening is the artist is just kind of going, all right, good luck. And then they're surrounded by this world that's very polluting and challenging. And I just think we're setting up artists to fail because we're putting too much on their shoulders rather than just letting them play the role that they're supposed to play in the body, surrounded by other people with other gifts doing it together.
Their role, exactly. They need to play their role, and so does the people in our church. But dude, I'll never forget, bro, when we signed and we started to, make some headways. I remember doing our first. We flew in from somewhere on tour, and we're doing our first real rock festival. And Marilyn Manson was headlining, and at the time, he was the devil, right? Yeah, remember at that time? Just like Alice Cooper was the devil before, and then Christians were afraid of him, and then he's saved, right? Because God's in all the details, and God knows what He's doing. Yeah. But here's Marilyn Manson. He was the devil himself. He was gonna take all our kids to hell. And so I remember we were flying in with all these bands that we're like, oh man, I can't believe we're playing with all these bands, right? And we get there, we're driving to this outdoor venue, and we see all the picket signs, and we're like, oh dude, here he goes, all the Christians out there picketing Marilyn Manson, right? We're like, oh, this is gonna get crazy. We get closer, and all of a sudden they're picketing P.O.D. It was Christians that were picketing P.O.D., saying these guys are not of God. They're lambs in sheep's clothing. They're or wolves in sheep's clothing. Excuse me. Yeah. All these things, and we were blown away. It was like, are you kidding me? And our minds were like, dude, assassins. We just got into the the enemy's camp. Here we are, assassins, and instead of praying for us or saying, instead of saying, dude, this might not be world, but dude, or my world, but I understand, or dude, just come talk to us, see our heart, come test our hearts, and see that, dude, God's got you in a place, man, I'm going to stand behind you and really, really support you. But the moment you fall off or you have you struggle with something, oh, dude, they'll be the first ones there to pick you apart and criticize you when it's like, dude, what do you care? Where were you?
Right.
And I spent so much time of my early years, when I was just trying to discover God, all of a sudden I quickly realized that, dude, I'm not like most Christians, or they're telling me that I'm not like them. And so maybe all we do have in common is Christ crucified. And to me, that's still okay, but we could still love each other. We could still support each other. And I see that with a lot of our brothers in these bands that have gone out and they've made it in the secular world, and they were Christians and now they say they're not Christians and all this stuff. And a lot of that, I understand the hurt that comes from that pressure. The people that are saying, dude, you guys blew it, or why don't you say Jesus in 1,000 times in each song, or there's all these criticisms, and then eventually you just give up. You're like, dude, I'm so sick of trying to please you, bro. I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I sure wish you would just pray for me, love me, keep me accountable, but walk with me, and so when they feel that way, it's easy for them to give up. And so, I totally understand that, but I also understand that when you stand before God, it's those excuses aren't going to matter. You can't point the finger. Oh, dude, it's because Christian Joe over there and Christian Sally. It's not going to work. I get it, and I believe you. I believe you, dude. 100%. I've been there, but we are accountable for ourselves, and so. But we need a platform. We need a place to encourage those people and say, dude. It's about, dude, we say this all the time, but it never goes, dude, you could say it till you're blue in the face. It is about Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not about the institution of church and Christianity. It's not about this religious thing or your past hangups or the way you grew up. Dude, it's about right now walking with Jesus in this moment. That's what gets us more excited,
Yeah, and I think it's quite telling that Jesus spoke so much of unity and also reserved his most visible anger for Christians or Christians who were not getting it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, his anger was directed at Pharisees. I mean, I've been in situations in shows, not with Linkin Park, but we played some shows and we were in front of lots of people and seeing people come to Jesus and being all these places. I remember getting off stages and walking up and talking to some guy, and he introduced himself. He's from the church, and he says, "Yeah, I just really am bothered because you guys were using like satanic riffs. There was like the music, and I'm like, or like you were wearing like a lot of red, so that's a bad color." And have you not seen what we've just done here? There's like thousands of people who preach the gospel, and all these people are touched, and what you care about is some weird hang up about a riff, like what even is that? So
you're never ever gonna please them. The problem is that that's the thing, dude, you can say, I don't even care. It's like reading a comment on your Instagram. I'll do whatever. I don't even care. But deep down inside, you care. It hurts. Yeah. It does, dude. So here you are, and you're in this band, and you're like, dude, they don't even know. Like, I just prayed with this guy backstage, or I just led this dude to the Lord, or dude, I've built relationship with these guys in some of the biggest bands in the world. And dude, they're open to the gospel, and there's this relationship being built. And all that person is saying, like, why didn't you do an altar call at Ozfest? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And it's like, bro, kick back. Like, you don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, and so then I wonder, like, where's your discernment? Like, where's your faith in God? Like, it's mind blowing. And dude, and it will get to you. And I think forever it made me bitter. And that was more of, that wedge to where I became lukewarm, where it's like, dude, I'm so tired of these Christians again coming against me and not really knowing the whole picture, but dude, I'll never forget, even when the Whosoever was birthed, God had to take those hangups and really just destroy them, and I've said this before, where I really felt like God was, in order for me to keep drawing closer to him, he whispered in my heart, he said, dude, take it easy on my church, son. I know, like, who are you telling? I know this. And I will judge them. but you need to keep your heart on me. And so,
Mm.
dude, I've been trying. I mean, dude, we can have a venting session all day long, you know. And like you said, I love the way you said, hey, dude, we're not talking about the church. We love them. You know, we are the church. You always have to clarify that, because there's always like, dude, I spend more time being like, bro, to the Christian, like, what's up, dude? Can you get over it so we can go talk to this guy about the Lord? You know, the world needs to get saved, right?
Yeah.
And we're too busy arguing with each other. Like, I don't have time for that. And I never really had time for that, but it still bothered me, you know?
Yeah. And I think that is something that I would guess, in the same way that you experienced lukewarmness, at least in some measure, some degree, because of those kind of experiences, that there are friends of mine from the music world who I would guess, if we were all able to be honest enough and found a space where we could really have this conversation, and if we could really begin digging down, I would guess that many of them have either walked away from God or are currently struggling with God, like tying it back to a little thread of offense, where somebody offended them for something. And oftentimes in cases like this. So, it's, I guess, like to kind of like shift gears a little bit. I want to, you guys, you and Ryan, I know, have just come back from another tour. Like right now, everybody except for Sean Foyt is like staying in their houses and not doing anything public, no gatherings, like nothing.
Yeah.
But then there's like the whosoever's. It's like you guys have found this little niche it's not like 10,000 people on the downtown Nashville courthouse steps. It's like still high schools and skate parks and different places around America, where when I see evidence of what God's doing, it's still kind of like mind-boggling, because it's like, oh wait, it's is this COVID? Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is. I don't know. I can't remember what year is this. But can you just share from your heart what it is that you see God doing, and what that maybe what that experience has been like?
For sure. And dude, and I'm guilty of that as well. Trust me. I don't thank God for COVID, but when they said, dude, you guys have to sit at home for 2 months, locked down with your families, I was like, thank God. I was like, yeah dude. I toured 13 months out of the year. So for me, that was, and was a blessing in disguise for me personally, but as time goes by, you're like, okay, what's really going on? This is getting too long. I need a tour. I need to, you don't tour, you don't eat, you know what I mean? You got to make money. You got to do all these things come into play.
Sure.
And all those cares and worries. And then, so again, I look back now and I'm like, man, I wish I could have did things so much different, not that I regret the time with my family and just doing nothing and being here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things I wish I would have just used that time to really, I don't know, just get closer to the Lord, but whatever, God knows what's up.
Yep.
So that's what happened with the whosoever's, here we're from California, and a lot of the main focus is in the high schools and stuff like that. And because of COVID, we can't go in. So Ryan's been going out. He started it. He went down to Mexico. He started in Idaho, because a lot of times, the rules are a little bit different. But then we just kind of shifted. We're still doing high schools and stuff, but the skate parks are wide open, and the rules are a little bit, not as crazy. There's still people coming out. And so he called me literally a few weeks ago and said, dude, we're going, you want to come? And I was just like, dude, I need to go and be a part of something beautiful. I need for myself to see God move and know that, I'm not trying to go down this rabbit hole of worries and doubts, So it really was stepping in faith. I didn't even look at the itinerary. I knew we were doing skate parks, youth detention centers, family homeless shelters, rehabs, all the things that started, when we started the Whosoever's, that's kind of where we were at. And if they were open to have us in, obviously we followed the rules, masked up, and we went in, and it was really just the most purest, innocent love for people to just meet them again, right where they're at. But for me, this time was more stepping out in faith and watch God move, like with more of an urgency, It's not this throwing out seeds and then let God do it. Because of the situation of life we're in, it's a little bit more urgency, I feel, for us. And it was just like, dude, okay, we came here to love you. We came to share the gospel with you. We came to pray for you, whatever's going on in your life, healing, demonic, encounters, just any struggle, all these things. And stepping out in faith, I was like blown away. And then it was like, dude, because they were experiencing this thing, we were just like, you want to receive Jesus? And they're like, yes. You know what I mean? And so for me, it was me stepping out of my comfort zone. And, because I'm a laid back kind of guy. But when these kids were there and they're saying, man, we prayed for things that are going down, the broken homes and the anxieties, the suicidal thoughts, all these things. But these kids were open for us to pray over them however we felt. And then, dude, I watched God heal people physically, spiritually, just everything. And then because of seeing those things happen, these kids were like, dude, I want what you guys have.
Wow.
And so it was easy, bro. It was easy. It wasn't just like, okay, I'll just go. I'll tell you I'm gonna pray for you, and then I give you my prayer hand emojis in my text, and then I'm out. It was more like,
right.
I'm talking guys at the gas
Netflix
station.
Binging.
Yeah. I'm talking about guys at the gas station, guys at the diner. It was like we just all of a sudden we came alive, and it was like, dude, every moment we had. If someone walked up to us to say, hey, what are you guys doing here? Well, let me tell you, man. And it was like, dude, before we're walking out of a fast food joint, a coffee shop, and somebody's giving their life to the Lord. And dude, I am still again trying to process it all. It was mind blowing, but dude, like you said, it makes you hungry, like you want it again, dude. So, dude, what happened? I'm going to Florida next week with the Whosoevers. I'm supposed to be writing the P.O.D. album right now,
Pause on the album. It's time to go on tour.
I want to go where God is moving, because it's exciting, man.
Yeah, it is.
Well, and I think something that's so important about what you're saying is, I think one of the challenges, I think of the Western church, I think of what Jesus said when he talked about how hard it is for the rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And I think part of the problem is we have so much, and for many people, there is really, they need God, but they don't need God, if you know what I mean. They don't need God in any real way. They don't ever put themselves in positions where God is required. I'm a firm believer that if you're not saying, this isn't going to go well unless God helps me, if you're not saying that a lot as a follower of Jesus, I feel like you're not putting yourself in a position where you even require the presence of God, right? We need to be putting ourselves in positions where it's like, God, if you don't show up, this is going to go really bad for me. And that's when you go back to your Bible and go, man, I need this God. I need this intimacy because I'm experiencing this real life stuff. And so it's such a beautiful example of how your faith isn't grown by more intellectual knowledge or by more activities, but by getting out there and experiencing the brokenness and then God's power intervening in the brokenness. Dude, man, that's everything.
So right on, bro. Like so many people have all the head knowledge from sitting in church for so long, but their heart, they have nothing in their heart. Their hearts, there's nothing there. There's no experience. There's no action. It's just, man, you got me, dude. You can quote more verses than me. You got me. That doesn't mean anything. You're not being activated. You're not doing anything, and that's just it. There's some people that have so much, but dude, you don't have to walk far down the street to find someone that has nothing and has nobody and has, the stories that we encounter with these kids will just, dude, they're. I knew the world was evil before I left, but encountering these hearts and these broken kids and the youth, it's just one more reminder that it's even more evil than I thought. And it's so, dude, so many times I prayed that while Ryan or Christina, like all these people that were, they would lay hands on somebody to watch God move. Dude, I'm talking from, dude, high as a kite, strung out kids coming up and just praying that God, even God would sober them. Like, dude, I'm sitting there praying with them, like, come on, God, like, dude, you're not a joke, and I don't want to be a joke either. I'm not. We stepped out in faith to pray for this kid. We want this kid to experience this, dude. The Spirit touches life right now. We want to see this kid say, dude, oh my gosh, my arm, it feels so much better. Or I felt this peace in my heart. And I'm literally, just like you said, praying like never before, like, God, like, this is not a joke. You're not a joke, God. Like, do it. This is the only way this kid is going to accept you right now, is because he's going to experience sobriety like that. He's going to experience this demonic force leave him like that. He's going to experience all of a sudden, dude, I couldn't even breathe. I couldn't even barely walk because of my skateboard accident. I can't even skate. All of a sudden, by the time we leave the skate park, he's skating around doing his stuff because we prayed over him. And that kid is like, and we're, again, dude, how do you feel? Dude, I feel great. You want to accept Jesus? Yes. Repeat after me. Jesus, forgive me my sins. Forgive me my sins. These kids are doing it right then and there. And I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness, this is nuts, right? Like, I'm excited. Yeah. I'm like, this is crazy, Lord. Like, where have I been the last 30 years? You know, that's how kind of how I felt, where it's like, and then now I'm rereading again through the book of Acts. And I'm like, dude, okay, God, you called us to do this, man. You said do it. And so I'm like, instead of being a skeptic, I'm not weird, man. I'm as non-weird as they come, just because I know the weirdness pushes people away. And sometimes, you know, me, I'm just as real as they come, but this excitement, and it's genuine. It's like, dude, I'm watching God move, man. I'm saying, dude, get on board, like jump on board with me. Not because I know it all, but dude, let's jump on board together. Let's watch God move right now.
I mean, one of the things to honor you, bro, that I thought in preparation for this today was really, really encouraging to my heart, because I've seen a lot of what you're describing, and I've also seen a lot of the weird and kind of like how easily it can become a very seemingly fleshly kind of thing. But I thought what was maybe most remarkable was one of your Instagram posts was talking about, like, you were basically apologizing to the social world and everyone following you on social media that you hadn't communicated very well because you were just trying to stay present with the people in front of you and make them your priority. And I think that anytime that our hearts are able to press pause on the demands of social pressures around us, just because we care enough about the person in front of us, like I'd say at that point, dude, you're getting closer to Jesus than you might think, you know. Like,
it's so true.
So that was really encouraging, and I want to. That definitely challenged me, you know. And it's like, man, I want more of that. And so thank you for sharing, and thank you for what you're doing. How can we best be praying for you and our community be praying for you in this season?
I mean, like I said, I'll be writing another P.O.D. record. You know, next year is if we can get back to work, it looks very promising. It's our 20th anniversary of our biggest record, Satellite.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are excited. You know, tours are lining up, but again, who knows?
When's the first? Oh, sorry. Go. What were you?
No. Go ahead.
What's the first confirmed event that P.O.D. has in 2021? Like date wise, do you know?
As of right now, on the books is all our European dates and festivals of 2020 were basically, everything was just pushed back to 21. Right. So we'll take off in May. You know, Europe's a little bit more lenient right now as far as the rules go, but who knows what's going to happen next March, April, you know? So that's, but I try not to get lost in that. I just, you know, you kind of just do business like you're supposed to. And if it happens, it happens, you know, but for now, I mean, that's going down. We'll be, obviously, I think every band in the world is writing a new record right now because they have the time, you know, that's the space, which is exciting for music next year. As far as the whosoevers go, man, we really are just keep praying for that God does it. I would love to do this, not full time, but when God is done with music and or that, you know, that community or whatever, that chapter, I want to move on to the next chapter. You know what I mean? But dude, I got to put my kids through college as well. Like I never get paid for ministry in all my 30 years, but now you're like, well, what if you go into full-time ministry? Like, what's going to happen? You know, you got I hate putting money and ministry together. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you really do need those finances that say, hey, dude, I can go out and do the things that I believe God has called me to do, while also being secure that, dude, my rent's getting paid, you know, my bills my lights aren't going to shut off, you know, my kids are going to get an education, you know, there's food on the table. It's all those things come into play. And because the whosoevers, I believe you are very radical. People see it, the outside world or Christians see us and they think, oh, they're rock and roll guys, or maybe that's not of God, or they have all the money in the world and they don't need my support. It's like that's not true. Yeah. So because when we go to these skate parks and stuff, dude, we give away, we feed them. You know, we get 1,000 pizzas. We feed all the kids. We supply. We're giving them skateboards. We're giving them clothes. We're just everything that we can do to give. It's give. And then the moment you open up all those things in them that, dude, these guys are just giving, they're not taking, then we share the gospel with them. And it's like, dude, I'm just going to tell you guys this one thing. The reason why we were able to do this is because people love you, God loves you, and they're more, acceptable to it. But just keep praying for the Whosoevers, man. If you go to our socials and the website and stuff, you can kind of see what's going on.
Cool. Thanks. Ben, can you close us out by praying for Sonny and the Whosoevers?
Yeah, awesome. Great. Yeah. Lord, I thank you so much for Sonny. I thank you for his life and his heart and his humility, God, and that the best is yet to come, Lord, that you are going to use him more powerfully in the future than you ever have in the past. I really believe that, God. Thank you for this awakening in his heart. Give him a deeper understanding of how much you love him, how much you are for him. Lord, let him find that pure, simple intimacy with you that is totally disconnected from anything he'll ever do, that there's no work that you need him to do to validate him as a person. You love him already and are so proud of him already. And I pray that he would just feel that like he's never felt that before, Lord, so that it's house money from that point, Lord. Everything he does is just like, it's cool, Lord. It's just working with his dad, Lord, reaching people, loving people. We thank you for this brother in Christ, and we pray for just amazing testimonies of power beyond this day, Lord God. I pray that P.O.D. would have an amazing tour next summer, Lord. Let this COVID nonsense go away, Lord. Let this virus be broken in Jesus' name, and let the world, not everything go back to normal, Lord. The things that you want to go back to normal, let them go back to normal. Otherwise, let it be just a summer of spreading the gospel through art and music, Lord, and let P.O.D. be part of that, Jesus.
Thank you.
We just thank you for our brother and for the Whosoevers and Ryan and Brian and everyone else, and just bless them all. And let us continue to partner together for the gospel in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, brothers. Yeah, appreciate you guys, man.
Thank you, Sonny. That was awesome.
Hey, I'm always around for you guys, man. Love you guys.
Thank you. Love you too.
All right, fellas. Right.
Well, for those listening and watching and commenting, there's been a lot of food comments. Apparently, everyone knows you by the meals.
That's crazy. How many people are like, I had Wendy's with this guy.
I know. I'm telling you, it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
That's so funny, man. That's great.
Well, that's incredible. That's good. Well, it could be worse. So anyway, all positive things. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening, watching. This will come out in a few days. We love you, Sonny. We are praying that God uses you powerfully. And for those listening, we'll talk to you next time. Peace.